McLaren. It has dominated 2025 like few teams in recent memory. 9 wins from 12 races by mid-season. A Constructors' Championship that looks almost wrapped up. But even the fastest car on the grid has a weakness. The MCL39 suffers from what both drivers call a numb front axle. The front suspension gives almost no feedback when pushed to the absolute limit. When Lando Norris or Oscar Piastri need to extract that final 10th in qualifying, the car doesn't tell them what's coming. Lockups happen without warning. Turn-in feels disconnected. It's cost them pole positions they should have had. Norris struggled with it more early in the season, making unforced errors that let Max Verstappen snatch poles despite having a slower car. The team tried different suspension setups. Norris changed to a higher caster angle to get more steering feedback. Piastri stayed with the original setup, but the fundamental issue remained. Then there's the bumps and curbs problem. Singapore exposed it. Baku showed it. Canada revealed it. On tracks with heavy braking zones, bumps, and aggressive curb riding, McLaren loses its advantage. The car struggles to generate grip over bumpy surfaces. Team principal Andrea Stella admitted they know exactly where the car is weak. Short corners, braking with bumps, curb riding, traction zones. And there's one more issue. They stopped developing this car months ago. While Mercedes and Red Bull kept bringing upgrades, McLaren shifted everything to 2026. At Singapore, they were genuinely third fastest. The MCL39 is still the best car on the grid, but it's not perfect. And on certain tracks, that imperfection costs them dearly. Red Bull. It has a problem they can't solve no matter who sits in that second seat. Max Verstappen is performing miracles. 2 wins at Suzuka and Imola that defied logic. But look at the other side of the garage, and it's a disaster. Yuki Tsunoda replaced Liam Lawson after 2 races and hasn't been able to deliver. His best qualifying with Red Bull was 7th in Belgium. In Hungary before the summer break, Verstappen finished 9th while Tsunoda came home 17th. The car itself has balance issues that have persisted since mid-2023. Verstappen complains constantly about understeer, a disconnected front-to-rear balance. The car limiting him from going fast, even when he's extracting everything possible. Christian Horner left the team abruptly in July. Laurent Mekies took over as team principal mid-season. That kind of upheaval doesn't help. The RB21 isn't consistently the measure of McLaren. It's won races, but only because Verstappen drove beyond the car's capability. Remove him from the equation, and Red Bull would be fighting for 4th or 5th in the championship. The second seat has become a revolving door. Sergio Perez couldn't do it. Lawson got 2 races and was dropped. Tsunoda's been given until the end of 2025 to prove himself, but the results aren't coming. Without 2 cars scoring consistently, you can't win a Constructors' Championship. One driver is performing at a championship level. The other is fighting to stay in the points. That gap is killing them. Ferrari. They came into 2025 with Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc. Expectations were sky high after fighting for the championship until the final race in 2024. Instead, they're 4th in the standings without a single win. The SF25 can't run low enough to the ground without risking illegal plank wear. There's a wooden plank underneath every car that can't wear down more than a certain amount. If it does, disqualification. Ferrari's car generates so much load in high-speed corners that it gets pushed closer to the track. Run the car in its optimal ride height window, and the plank wears down too much. Raise the ride height to protect the plank, and you lose downforce. That compromise murders them in qualifying. Leclerc has 7 podiums, but only 1 pole position. Hamilton's best qualifying was 5th in Montreal. Race pace is better because tire management can make up ground, but starting from the 3rd row makes everything harder. Fred Vasseur keeps talking about extracting potential, but won't specify the fix. Reports suggest a revamped rear suspension is coming to help the car cope with high-speed loads and run lower without destroying the plank. But that upgrade keeps getting delayed. Leclerc has been heroic all season, maximizing what the car offers. But there's only so much a driver can do when the car's fundamental design creates an unsolvable trade-off. Ferrari has the resources, the drivers, the history. What they don't have is a car that can run in its optimal window without breaking the rules. Mercedes. It has been fast this year. 4 podiums for George Russell. Kimi Antonelli took sprint pole in Miami. Then the hot races came and everything fell apart. The W15 has a crippling weakness. When track temperatures rise, the car overheats its rear tires and performance collapses. Toto Wolff summed it up perfectly. When it's hot, they're nowhere. When it's cold, they're quick. At Silverstone in cool conditions, competitive. Las Vegas last year in freezing temperatures, unbeatable. But in Jeddah, Barcelona, and Austria, when temperatures climb, the car couldn't keep the rear tires in the optimal window. The rear end loses stability. Tire degradation goes through the roof. Russell said said it bluntly, they're at the mercy of the weather. Deputy Technical Director Simone Resta admitted tire management hasn't improved from 2024. The car generates too much rear tire temperature, great for getting heat into the tires quickly in cold conditions, disastrous when ambient temps are high. Trackside Engineering Director Andrew Shovlin explained, it's not something they can fix with a single aero update. It's built into the car's DNA. The W15 puts more heat into the rear tires than any other car. Setup changes can mask it or make it worse, but they can't eliminate it. With European summer races coming, that weakness could define their season. They need winter jackets and frozen tracks to be competitive. What they're getting is Mediterranean heat and melting asphalt, and there's no quick fix in sight. Alpine, it is staring at a last-place finish. They've scored 20 points all season, all from Pierre Gasly. Franco Colapinto replaced Jack Doohan in May and hasn't scored once. Gasly's last point came in Belgium at the end of July. Since then, his average finish has been 18th. The Renault engine is down on power compared to Mercedes, Ferrari, and Honda, roughly 0.2 seconds per lap just from the engine deficit. At Monza, Alpine was the slowest car on the straights in qualifying. They hit 345.7 kilometers per hour. Williams was fastest at 364.1. That's nearly a 20 kph gap. The power unit's energy recovery is weak. The car clips on long straights, running out of battery deployment before reaching the braking zone. There's also a reliability and spare parts problem. Renault announced in September 2024 they were shutting down their F1 engine program at the end of 2025. Resources are scarce. The engines are also aging. From the start of the season to now, Alpine's power units have lost roughly 14 horsepower just from natural degradation. The chassis has problems too. It struggles in slow corners, can't ride bumps or curbs. Gasly admitted it's a global issue. Chassis and engine both need improvement. But with Renault already checked out, there's no fix coming. Alpine has shifted focus to 2026 when they'll switch to Mercedes power units. Flavio Briatore admitted they put all effort into the 2026 car and paid the price in 2025. Until they get rid of that Renault engine, there's nothing they can do about it. Williams, they had a breakthrough year. 2 podiums from Carlos Sainz, 5th in the Constructors' Championship. But they stopped developing the car early. James Vowles made the call to cut back on wind tunnel time for 2025 and shift everything to 2026. He said it publicly. If that results in 6th or 7th, so be it. No more upgrades. The car they have now is the car they'll finish with, and rivals are closing in. At Abu Dhabi, Williams was shockingly weak. Sainz and Alex Albon finished 13th and 16th. After a podium in Qatar 1 week earlier, the car looked lost. Sainz called it a wake-up call. Earlier in the season, Albon was carrying the team. 7 points finishes in the first 8 races. Then his form fell off a cliff. Sainz has been the faster driver in the second half. Williams also suffered a double disqualification in Singapore. Technical breaches on both cars in qualifying. Those mistakes cost them points and grid positions. The team is stable now. Vowles has brought structure. Sainz is there long-term. But the decision to abandon 2025 development early is a gamble. If 2026 goes well, it'll look brilliant. If it doesn't, they've thrown away a season for nothing. Aston Martin, it has been kings of the midfield for 2 years. Strong starts followed by poor development. 2025 looks the same. The AMR 25 just isn't fast. In preseason testing, the car looked mediocre. During the season, worse. They've been leapfrogged by Alpine and Williams. The car does what the drivers want, but when the baseline is slow, driver skill can only do so much. Adrian Newey joined in March, but his focus is entirely on 2026. He had zero input into the current car. Aston Martin is running a lame duck season, already focused on next year. Development has been minimal. Budget and resources are being poured into 2026, where Newey's influence can actually matter. Lance Stroll continues to underperform compared to Fernando Alonso. When you're fighting in the midfield, you need both drivers scoring. Alonso is doing everything he can, but one driver can't carry a team that's fallen this far back. Aston Martin's season is essentially over. They're waiting for 2026, hoping Newey can deliver the magic he brought Red Bull, hoping the Honda engine partnership pays off. But hope isn't a strategy, and in 2025, they're paying the price for putting all their eggs in the future basket. Haas, it remains the smallest team in Formula One. Lowest budget, smallest workforce, lowest ceiling. They finished 7th in 2024. This year, they're fighting just to stay ahead of Alpine. The season started terribly. At the Australian Grand Prix, the car had aerodynamic aerodynamic oscillations at high speed. Turn 9 and 10 cost them over half a second. Team boss Ayao Komatsu felt physically sick. They produced a hasty floor upgrade for Suzuka. It had never been in the wind tunnel. They designed it based on gut feel, built it, and bolted it on. It worked. That shows Haas has smart people, but it also shows how limited their resources are. They brought further upgrades at Silverstone and Austin. Ollie Behrman's 4th place in Mexico matched the team's best ever result. But Behrman is a rookie learning on the job. Nico Hülkenberg is carrying the team, but he's gone to Audi for 2026. Haas is stuck in a cycle they can't break. Small team, small budget, limited development. They've slipped from 7th last year to battling Alpine for 9th. Haas isn't failing. They're doing everything right with what they have. But what they have isn't enough to compete with teams that have triple their budget. Sauber, it is in last place, by a mile. They were the slowest team in 2024, and not much has changed. Gabriel Bortoleto and Nico Hülkenberg are doing what they can, but the car is fundamentally uncompetitive. Audi is taking over. The entire organization is focused on 2026 when Audi officially becomes a works team. Everything in 2025 is a placeholder. The team brought a floor upgrade at the Spanish Grand Prix in late May. It made the car less peaky and more confidence-inspiring. Hülkenberg got a podium at Silverstone in the wet. Bortoleto scored points in 3 of the last 4 races, before the August break. But even with improvements, they're still at the back. The car lacks ultimate pace. Development is minimal, because resources are being poured into the 2026 project. Audi is monitoring results from Ingolstadt, but they know this year doesn't matter. Sauber is running a write-off season, giving Bortoleto experience, keeping Hülkenberg motivated with promises of better things to come. Competitively, they're nowhere. Sauber is in survival mode. Get through 2025. Don't embarrass themselves too badly. Then reset completely for 2026 when Audi takes full control and the real project begins. Racing Bulls. It has become more of a proper Red Bull B team in 2025 than ever before. They use Red Bull's mechanical components, the 2024 spec suspension, the gearbox, anything they're allowed to share. It reduces headcount needed, but it locks them into Red Bull's philosophy. The V-Carbo 2 has a wider working window than the senior Red Bull team. It doesn't have ultimate downforce, but for a team set up to bring on rookies, that's what you need. A car that's easy to drive, confidence-inspiring. Isaac Hadjar stepped up when given the chance. Yuki Tsunoda was competitive before being promoted, but Racing Bulls has no identity. Are they developing young drivers, fighting for position in the midfield? Just a testing ground for Red Bull's cast-offs? Nobody really knows. The car is decent. Midfield pace, reliable, but there's no clear direction. Development has been limited. The team started the season as one of the better midfield cars, but got outdeveloped by Haas and others. That's been their weakness for 2 years. Good start. Poor development. Racing Bulls is stuck in limbo. Not quite fast enough to challenge the top teams. Not quite slow enough to be an also-ran. Just existing with no long-term vision beyond serving Red Bull's needs. And that's the biggest weakness of all. No purpose beyond being the feeder team.